Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Blake Topmeyer of USA Today was doing a piece on Brian Kelly and a Q&A with him, doing an interview, and I wanted to take one of the quotes and kind of expound on it a little bit. The question that Blake Topmeyer asked Brian Kelly was, when do you feel like this program will be ready to compete seriously for a national championship? And Kelly's answer, and I'll just read it to you and then give my thoughts on it, was, we need another year of recruiting. One more really good year on both sides of the ball, I think, puts us in a position where I think year three, the consistency piece, the depth of our program, the messaging, all the things we do on a day-to-day basis, puts us in a position to compete for a championship. Year two, the foundation is in place. I think there's a really good confidence within the group. We've got good players. There's some holes. There's a little air coming out of the tire here and there. I think we've kind of patched most of it. But I think year three is probably where I'll feel in terms of building a program. We've had enough time to really put the pieces together. Well, as you're well aware, this is not year three. This is year two. And you'll immediately run to Kim Mulkey in year two and Jay Johnson in year two, and I get all that. That's not really the conversation that we're having here. The question is, do you agree with Brian Kelly when he says that we're not ready to contend seriously for a national championship right this second this year? I don't. I'm certain that he may feel better about his team in year three, that he feels better about the foundation they've put in place, 2 full years of high school recruiting, another year in the transfer portal, getting in place the systems that he wants in place off the field, the coaches he wants in place. I think, sure, he might feel better in year three. But let's be real. Like, as of Thanksgiving Day, there were 6 teams that had a chance to win a national championship last year, and LSU was one of them. So for me to sit here and say that you're taking a significant step back in year two, I disagree. I think LSU can contend seriously for a national championship this year. Would I bet on LSU to win the national championship? No. Do I think they can contend? However you want to define that? Yeah. You got an all-conference level quarterback. You've got 4 offensive line starters back, including your tackles in year two that you feel like are pros. You've got 100 running backs that you can cycle in and out. You got a true number 1 wide receiver in Malik Neighbors, plus real depth at that position. Brian Thomas, Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton. I could go on and on. You know those guys. You got a really good tight end. Defense, okay, you're not quite as strong there on paper. You've brought in a bunch of transfers up front that you hope can handle the load on the edge, but you've got an All-American type player in Mekhi Wingo and an All-American type player in Mason Smith at tackle. Is it the traditional LSU secondary? Probably not. Does it have some talent? Yeah. It's not a perfect roster. I'm not suggesting that LSU's got a perfect roster here. But I do think they can contend seriously for a national championship as that question is posed. Now, the line here is so fine when you're talking about competing for a championship, because one play here or there, maybe a field goal at the end of a game early in the season, a couple of feet here or there, makes a massive difference in football. You throw 2 losses in there, okay, you're in big trouble. It's not like baseball, like we just watched, where you can have 3 weeks where it's just not clicking. You can have a month early in the season where things just don't look very good. Looks like there's holes everywhere. And that doesn't knock you out. So that is the margins there are significant. In college football, they're razor small for 1 more year. So the point of this segment is not to suggest, hey, LSU right here, right now, look out national championship. That's not it. But the point I am making is, like, when you look across the board, like, Cal ain't going to do it. Neither is Georgia Tech. Texas Tech's not going to win the national championship. There are only so many schools capable of doing this. And LSU is, year in and year out, one of them. It doesn't mean that you do it every year. You don't. Alabama's been on an unbelievable run, and Georgia's real hot right now, and Clemson's had their go at it, and Ohio State's always really good. But LSU's in the conversation. And some years just doesn't go very well. And some years it clicks, and there they are. That's why they've played for this thing 4 times in the last 20 years. That's why they've won it 3 times in the last 20 years. And we're about to get into talking season where we're going to break down everybody's returning offensive linemen and everybody's, rush edge guys and who's got the top draft picks and what do these quarterbacks, these new ones look like, transferring everywhere. And we're going to get into talking season heavy in 2 weeks up in Nashville. And August will run on sound bites, and we'll be chomping at the bit to get into a game. But right now, you just zoom out and go 30,000 feet. What am I looking at here? You're looking at a program that recruits exceptionally well, that recruits annually in the top 10, that has gone into the transfer portal and addressed needs. And the roster's probably not exactly where Brian Kelly wants it to be. I don't think you ever really get to that point. But it's pretty close to being where it needs to be. Because the positions where you've really got to have talent, LSU has got it. They've got it on the offensive line. They've got it at quarterback. They've got playmakers. They've got interior defensive linemen that can help control the line of scrimmage defensively and help the rest of the guys out. They've added experience and depth on the edges. They've got one of the best players in the country at Harold Perkins that can change games defensively. Like, there aren't a whole lot of places that you can point to and say, well, they're just not close there. And Kelly says that in the quote. I mean, I read it back to you. Says he thinks that there are some holes. There's a little air coming out of the tire here and there. I think we've kind of patched most of it, but I think year 3 is probably the year. And maybe there's an element of a psychological element here. I mean, we listened to Kim Mulkey do this all year long last year. They were undefeated. Yeah, well, we had a light non-conference schedule. Yeah, well, we've got some issues. Yeah, it's only year 2. And then, they put the bracket out there. We're not supposed to be in the Final Four. Just our second year here. We're trying to install a program. We've got some youth. I mean, Kim Mulkey told us so we're not quite ready. And maybe they wouldn't have been if Caitlin Clark's Iowa team wouldn't have played the game of their year and beaten South Carolina. And maybe South Carolina gets to that final against LSU, and maybe they beat them by 30. I don't know. And then we've totally changed the discussion. But that's not what happened. So maybe there's a bit of a psychological piece to this that Brian Kelly is using. We know how big into psychological things he is. But I'm just sitting back here and looking at it nuts and bolts. And I'm telling you right now that LSU is going to be picked first or second in the West. And pretty much automatically, if you're towards the top of an SEC division, you're contending for a national championship. Pretty much. Not a lot of 3 and 4 loss division champs. Now, last year, A&M beat LSU right at the end, and it shifted this whole discussion because LSU was going to compete for the SEC championship, and they had 3 losses. But that's not the norm. You tell me. We're going to put it up on the Citizens Bank and Trust poll question of the day. Is LSU ready to seriously contend for a national championship in 2023? And I know that we're feeding that to a bunch of LSU people, so that's going to likely impact the results of the poll pretty significantly. But again, I'm not betting on them to be much better than Georgia or to be better than Ohio State or to go to Tuscaloosa and win. Right now, as we sit here in early July, I'm not betting on that, but I'm just telling you, I look at the roster, I look what they've got. I think that's a team that could contend for a national championship. We got all month to talk about that, don't we? So we'll see what the Citizens Bank and Trust poll question of the day might reveal. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.